Hello students, this is EPG Patsala. Welcome back. And myself, Mutum Silpa Devi, belong to the Department of Human Development, Avinasilingam University. Today we are going to discuss about art of helping skills. Human beings are social beings. We help one another to survive, to adapt, to evolve, to develop. When family members help, we call it responsibility. When neighbors help, we call it friendly. When friends help, we call it caring. Helping is the fundamental human activity. With these helping hands, we move forward and live our lives. The survival of individuals, communities, and society at large depend on mutual aid giving. However, at times of crisis, tragedy, illness, disability, and death, we need more help than we usually need. In these situations, the help offered by our near and dear ones are not helpful for various reasons. All too often, the sincere offers of help are resented, resisted, or refused. This is mostly because one may have a lot of goodwill to render help but lack the necessary skills. The professional helpers are needed under these situations. The professional helpers work mostly in the domains of counseling, healthcare, rehabilitation, education, and social work. Helping professions require studying the curriculum of accumulated scientific knowledge and developing the skills to be an effective helper. So the objectives of this lesson today is to be able to help students to understand basic skills of counseling, to enable students to comprehend how these skills help clients throughout the process of counseling. Before we discuss about the counseling skills or helping skills, we'll see about the counseling, a helping process. Counseling is a dynamic process during which a trained individual assists another person who is functioning at a low or ineffective level to become a more efficient functioning person. Therefore, counseling is often described as a helping process. It is also an art, and like any art, it necessitates to master certain specific skills to make the process effective. According to Nelson Jones, skills pertain to the areas of skill, the level of competence, and effective implementation. Therefore, counseling skills are sets of skills acquired through training and experiences with the practice for effective assistance of people overcoming their problems. So now we'll see who are the helpers. Helpers have adequate basic intelligence, awareness of their own intellectual possibilities and limitations. They respect the world of ideas but also practical oriented. So they turn good theory and research into practical programs that enable them to help clients more effectively. Skilled helpers are integrators, so they help clients to explore their experiences, feeling, and behavior. As the client explores and reveals about themselves, the helper assists the client to integrate the information to understand themselves and their behavior better. They extend their insight and understanding to assist clients set problem managing goals and move toward constructive behavioral change. They are not afraid to share their experiences if it will advance the helping process. They are also not afraid to challenge the client if there is a discrepancy between their information and experiences. But skilled helper does all these things with genuine respect and empathic understanding towards the client. So we'll discuss about the goal of helping. A client becomes a client because they are involved in problem situations that they are not handling well. The goal of helping is that the counselor helps the client to come to terms with or solve or transcend those situations and manage their problems in living more effectively. For example, Sheila was devastated with her husband's sudden death. She was only 36 with 3 small kids to raise all by herself. She felt disbelieving, angry, betrayed, and depressed all at the same time. After a period of grieving and isolation, finally in despair, she talked to a family friend who also referred her to a professional helper. With their help, Sheila came to terms with her life, a life without her husband, a life set to prioritize herself and her children. Finally, she managed to live much better than she thought she could. As the case clearly demonstrated, the goal of helping is not to make everything all right. Sheila's husband didn't come back from death. She still raised her children alone. The central part of helping process here is to help the client discover what kind and degree of problem management is possible in a certain situation. So now we'll see about the dynamics of counseling skills in the helping process. The contribution of Kharkov and Berenson in identifying helpers' skills were enormous. They analyzed Roger's core conditions and other necessary qualities shown by the facilitative therapies. These qualities were defined to distill two distinct helper skills, namely responding skills that communicate accurate empathy and initiative skills that enable action. Further analysis revealed two more skills, that is attending skills that ensure that the full attention is being paid, and personalizing skills that lead to ownership of problems and commitment to act to deal with them constructively. Then helper skills are linked and sequenced as attending, next responding, personalizing, and initiating. Further analysis of these skills, they realize the impact it has on the helpee, that is client's outcomes. It becomes clear that attending skills were the windows to helpers' attributes that communicate to the client. Attending skills, which were called as pre-helping skills, facilitate a willingness in the client to become involved in discussing personal issues, which lead to the helping stage. Likewise, the quality of helpers' responding skills was significantly linked to the level of exploration undertaken by the client when discussing personal issues. Next, personalizing skills provided an effective connection between the client's exploration and their action afterward, because it provides a better understanding of the implications of what they have explored, their personal responsibility towards the problem, and to improve the circumstances. The final helper's skills, initiating help, enable constructive action by the client. Thus, the helping process involves a relationship between helper's skills and client outcomes through three phases process which progress towards a common goal. So the figure here provided the phases of helping skills. We will discuss helping skills in more details. So the first, attending skills. Attending refers to the ways in which helper is being with the client both physically and psychologically. The ways in which a helper is present with the client is very crucial in order to develop a deep understanding interpersonal transaction. Attending effectively invites the client to trust the counselor, open up, and explore the significant dimensions of their problem. Attending can be considered in three successive levels. The first one is micro skills, then observing, then listening skills. So we'll discuss about the micro skills here. Micro skills are the ways in which a helper assures that he is physically present to a client. Attending physically is crucial in establishing counseling relationship. It is a known fact that human communicates through non-verbal language, that is 80%, then with words only 20%. Unconsciously, the helper sends messages to the client with his body language and attitudes, like yawning during the conversation, and then looking at the wristwatch, narrowing the eyes, etc., which will be picked up by the client without our being aware of them. Effective helpers are always mindful of what cues and messages they are sending as they interact with the client, because through the tone of voice, eyes, hands, lips, gestures communicate the interest or lack of interest to the client. So Gerard Egan developed Solar, a model of healthy attending, where the ways a helper can use their own body to communicate appropriate message to a client. So S stands for face the client squarely. A process of turning the body towards the client indicates involvement. The bodily orientation you adopt conveys the message that you are involved with the client. These postures convey that I am available to you and I choose to be with you. Then next, O stands for open postures. Adopt a posture which indicates openness. Avoid of crossed arms, legs, other defensive body languages. Open postures can be a sign that counselor is open to the client and to what he has to say. Then next is L. L stands for lean towards the client. Leaning forward is the natural results of deep involvement. These postures mean I am interested in you and what you have to say to me. Leaning back can mean that I am not entirely with you and I am bored. However, leaning too far forward is an invasion of personal space which may frighten the client. This the counselor has to be aware of. It can be conceived as a demand on the other for some kind of closeness or intimacy. So the next is eye contact, which stands as E. Maintaining good eye contact is a sign of deep involvement in the interaction. It is not the same as staring. On the other hand, if a helper frequently look away from the client, it may be a clue of reluctance to get involved with the person. Now next, R stands for relax. It is relaxing while engaging the client. This means not fidgeting nervously or engaging in distracting facial expression. This can make the client wonder what's making you nervous. Once a counselor feels natural in engaging in the behaviors listed above, he can be able to focus his attention on the client. However, it is important to note that these micro skills are few guidelines, not a rigid rules. So next we are moving on to the observing skills, that is a part of attending skill. It is the ability of the counselor to see and understand the nonverbal behaviors of the client, which is a rich source of learning about the client. Observing the client's appearance and behavior help counselor to infer the client's physical energy level, emotional feeling state, and intellectual readiness for the helping. A counselor can observe clients' physical, emotional, and interpersonal aspects. Physical observation includes the body build, physical appearance, and level of energy. Emotional observation involves facial expression, the expression of eye and lips, postures, body stance, grooming, etc. Interpersonally, counselor observes how she relates to him positively, negatively, or neutrally. Through these observations, the counselor needs to infer the energy level and feeling status of the client. So how we have to infer the energy level? A high level energy level allows an individual to experience the fullness of life. Persons with low level of energy have difficulty in meeting the demands of everyday life. So everything is a burden and they experience their day-to-day routine as an overwhelming. To determine the energy level of the client, the counselor must observe the body movement, posture, gestures, etc. Where alertness is an indication of high energy, slouchy posture, slow movement are the indication of the low level of energy. Next, how to infer the feelings. The richest source of data concerning the counselor's feelings is postures, facial expression, and grooming. Cheerful people sit erect in their chairs, smile, and neatly dress. On the other hand, depressed people sit with head hanging down, looking sad, and are careless in their ways of dressing. A person's non-verbal behavior has a way of leaking messages to others. Non-verbal behaviors are generally spontaneous than the verbal behavior due to autonomic physiological responses. Non-verbal behaviors can confirm the truth in what is being said. Verbally, eyes lit up, facial expressions, lean forward, bodily motion, and says animately, voice quality. It can also reveal the faulty in a verbal message. For example, when the counselor challenged the client's denial of being upset. I'm not upset, being her verbal communication. Maybe that time her voice falter a bit, voice quality that is, and her upper lip quiver. So this facial expression, thus her non-verbal behavior carried the true message, that is, she is not happy. Non-verbal behavior also emphasizes what is being said verbally. Slouching down and putting her face in her hands adds emotional color or intensity to the verbal message. Therefore, observing to understand the non-verbal messages of the client is an important task for the helpers. So next we are moving on to the third skills of attending skill, that is listening skills. Listening is an important skill a counselor must master to understand the entire context of client's verbal message. When a client talks, a counselor should listen to three aspects of the context. They are the client's experiences, their behavior, and the effect. Experiences, what is this? It is what happened to the client. The client talks about their problem situation in terms of an experience. For example, getting suspended from school, which is the client's experience as well as the problem situation. Behaviors, it is what the client do or fail to do. For example, I haven't even begun to look for a job. I know there are none in this city. Here the clients talk about their problem situation in terms of their behavior. Effect, it is the feelings and emotion that arise from or are associated with either experiences or behavior. If a client tells that she gets depressed after drinking too much, she is talking about the effect associated with her problem situation. So, listening framework is concerned with the helping clients clarify their problem situations. The problem situation is clear when it is understood in terms of specific experiences, behavior, and specific feelings and emotions. A skilled helper monitors the quality of their attending and listening. The skills of attending are described as pre-helping skills, but it is to be practiced throughout all the stages of helping process. So now we are moving into the real helping stage, that is we start with the responding skills. Previously, the helper has focused on taking information and understanding the client through effective attending skills. The client who talked so far wants to know if the counselor has listened to them. The counselor can assure the client through verbal report of what they have narrated. So, responding skill is the ability to respond intelligently to the client's expression for further problem exploration. The purpose of responding skill is to give the assurance to the client that the counselor understood her message, to make her hear her message in an orderly way, that is just the real message, leaving out all the accompanied messages, to give clarity to the counselor himself regarding what he understood, and it also serves as a stimulus for the client to talk further and explore more. So the skill of responding involves being able to communicate the understanding of the unique situation as presented by another. Responding involves responding to content, feeling, and meaning. So the first we will see about the responding to the content. The content is the most obvious part of the client's expression. The counselor responds to the content in order to clarify the critical ingredients of the helpee's experiences. The ingredients of contents are emphasized by the basic interrogative, which may be summarized as 5 WHs. They are who, what, why, when, where, and how. Who and what was involved, why did they do, why and how did they do it, when and where did they do it. So responding to the content facilitates the process by which the client continues exploration and provide missing information. Once the ingredients are clear, the counselor should respond to the content by rephrasing the helpee's expression. This is to communicate and confirm the understanding the counselor received from the client's expression. Next, responding to the feeling. Feelings are the client's affective experience of their problem situation. Identifying the client's feeling would be easier if the counselor used observation of non-verbal expression and listening skills effectively throughout the interaction. Once the dominant feeling and its intensity are identified, the counselor must respond to the client. So next one is responding to meaning. Responding to meaning is the counselor response to the combination of both feeling and content of the client's expression. It is so called because the combination of feeling and content gives each other meaning. The content gives intellectual meaning to the client's feelings. Likewise, the feeling gives emotional meaning to the contents of the client's experience. A response to the meaning is not complete until it communicates both feeling and content. For example, you feel sad, that is feeling, because your friend moved away, that is content, or your close friend moved away, that is content, and now you feel sad, that is feeling. Now, how do we know that the responding skill or responding phase has a completion? That when the counselor feels that the client has explored all the relevant areas of her personality and touched bottom, then he has to summarize and present the client with a picture of whole situation and how she feels in that situation. The summary must be brief and neat. Also, it must be approved by the client. Now, next we are moving into the third skills of the helping skill, that is personalizing skill. Personalizing skills assist the client internalize their experience by focusing on themselves. A counselor helps the client to become aware of the fact that she is playing a part in her problem. The purpose of this stage is to enable the client to understand where she is with respect to where she wants to or needs to be in her world. The client may report their experiences by putting all the blame on others for their problem situation, but it is likely that the client also has a part in the problem situation. The most effective method to improve the situation is for the client to acknowledge the part she plays in the problem and to work out a way of lessening or removing it together. So, personalizing is to bring awareness of the client of her personal deficits. This awareness can be dealt with three levels. They are: the first one is personalizing the meaning. It refers to the impact, effect, or implications the situation has to the client. Second one is personalizing the problem. It refers to what the client is doing or failing to do that becomes her problem. It is counselor's role to point it out this behavior of the client so that she would understand her roles of either commission or the omission. So, next one is personalizing the goal. It is the rectification of deficiencies in client's role to improve the problem situation. In this level, the counselor helps the client to internalize the goal of undoing what she had committed or doing what she had omitted earlier. The counselor should be careful about the timing of this personalizing skill because the client takes a long time to own their own responsibility. When the client is not ready for personalizing, then the counselor falls back to the previous stage of responding until the client is ready to review her convictions. Next, we are moving into the last stage of helping skill, that is initiating skills. As the process of helping is progress, as the client talks, the counselor attended, listened carefully, responded well, internalized the problem, and personalized the client's deficit. Then finally frame and reframe the goals. Now it is counselor's duty to initiate the client to act. Initiating skills are the helper's skills to facilitate the client's action to achieve her goal. Initiating involves defining goals, developing program, and implementing the program. So, the first one, defining goals. When a counselor helps client to set a goal, it should be defined clearly in order to make it achievable. The goal should be outcome oriented. It should be specific. It should be measurable and realistic, economic, and consistent with the client's values. So, the next one, after the goal is set, we have to develop strategies to achieve this goal. Strategies is the art of identifying and choosing realistic programs for achieving goals and doing so under adverse conditions. Here the counselor helps the client to develop a realistic program to achieve the goal defined earlier. Then the next step comes implementing that program. Some clients, once they have a clear idea of their goal and strategies to achieve it, just go ahead and do it. However, most of the clients need a greater or lesser amount of support and challenge from the helper at the implementation stage. Some of the skills a counselor may use to help clients stick to the program are identifying the client's restraining and facilitating forces, training them to be assertive, using contracts, getting performance feedbacks, using reinforcements, etc. So now to conclude this session, counseling is a goal-oriented process, we know that, and skills are means and tools to achieve its goal. It is important to identify and understand the helper's skill that facilitate clients for more effective ways of living. However, if only counselors were to work without the clients cooperating and taking their shared responsibility, it would not be a successful helping process. Therefore, it is a two-way collaboration between the counselors' helping skills and clients' actions that lead to a successful basis of the change and growth in the client.